Before I begin this video, I would like to give Napoleon of Birds a shout out for this amazing video title suggestion. If you saw any political news in the last weeks, or better yet, watched my video a few weeks ago, you might have heard that in a by-election, Trudeau's Liberal Party lost a seat they had held since 1993, but I, Dylan EDU, made a small tiny mistake. I forgot to explain what a by-election is. A by-election is an election in an individual riding to elect an MP for themselves in between elections. Basically, let's pretend right now your MP resigned. If there was no way to replace them, you would potentially go over 1 year from now without a voice for your area in Parliament. It's like a federal election, except the election only takes place in either just your riding or a small number of ridings. The Prime Minister gets the ability to decide when by-elections take place, as long as they are called within 180 days after a seat becomes vacant, and the campaign is between 36 and 50 days. This serves as a huge benefit to the party in power to call elections in a way to benefit themselves. The election also has to be on a Monday, which makes the timeline slightly shorter. Justin Trudeau just called 2 by-elections to take place on September 16th, one in LaSalle-Emard-Verdun and the other in Elmwood Transcona. Another seat, Langley Cloverdale, is currently vacant. He could have called a by-election here, but for whatever reason he just didn't. Want to know why he did this? Watch the rest of the video and see if you can figure out by the end. LaSalle-Émard-Verdun. This is a Quebec riding which was won by 20% by the Liberals over the Bloc Québécois, who were 4% ahead of the NDP. This seat became vacant on February 1st, when former Justice Minister David Lametti resigned as an MP. This election, which should be a safe Liberal hold, is shaping up to be a three-way race between the NDP, Liberals, and Bloc Québécois. The Conservatives are not a factor in this by-election and are not expected to divert many, if any, resources into this election. This is an example of how locally influenced by-elections are. Internally, the Liberals are quite worried about this seat. The NDP have announced that Craig Sauvé will be their candidate in this by-election. He is a popular left-wing city councillor in Montreal. The NDP seeks to make this the by-election that bucks the trend in recent elections. This trend is that the NDP consistently has received a lower percentage of the vote in every by-election this Parliament than the result in the previous election in the same riding. If the NDP can increase their vote share in this riding, let alone win it, that would be a major win for the NDP. The Bloc is certainly in contention in this riding, as the second-place finishers in the last election. They don't really have anything better to divert their resources to, given that they only run candidates in Quebec. Their candidate also happens to have the last name Sauvé, and they seemingly had a hard time picking a candidate in this riding, as they only announced their candidate on July 27th. The Liberal nomination was quite controversial. Originally, there was supposed to be a nomination race, and candidates had announced their campaigns to earn the support of local Liberals to be their candidate. However, Trudeau made the decision to instead handpick City Councillor Laura Palestini to be their candidate, which angered many would-be nomination contenders. Will this cause a backlash which results in the loss of support, like what happened to the Conservatives in Oxford? Only time will tell. The seat will likely end up being a three-way race. In the end, I think a Liberal win is probably the most likely scenario, but I don't think the Liberals have to necessarily lose this by-election for eyebrows to be raised. If the former seat of Prime Minister Paul Martin is even remotely close, I wonder if this would scare some Liberal MPs in Quebec into either pushing for a new leader or not running again altogether. Or this could end up being like the Toronto-St. Paul's by-election, where basically nothing happens. Elmwood Transcona. This race was triggered by the resignation of Daniel Blaikie. He resigned to go and work for the provincial NDP under very popular Premier Wab Kinew. This Manitoba seat was won by the NDP by 20% in the last election, after the Conservative Party of Canada vote apparently collapsed in this riding for some reason. This seat has only voted for a Conservative once since 1988, but this by-election has caught the eye of some observers. This is shaping up to be a serious two-way race between the NDP and Conservative Party, with the Liberals being the non-factor in this by-election. The NDP, not too long after Blaikie's resignation, picked Leila Dance as their candidate. She has positioned herself as basically just the candidate to continue Blaikie's legacy in this riding. The Conservative Party picked Colin Reynolds as their candidate. He is a construction electrician who has described himself in the video posted by the party as a proud union member. Union members tend to vote for the NDP, so it is a smart choice to pick a candidate who can go after these NDP voters in an effort to flip the seat. The CPC is seemingly making a solid effort in this riding, and have picked a decent candidate to support this mission. Winning this candidate would be huge, as it is in Manitoba, which is the only Western province in which they aren't projected to win a majority of seats in as of right now. And the trend earlier of the NDP falling in by-elections is something I think the Conservative Party is banking on being part of their strategy, and is part of the reason they view the seat as winnable. I asked earlier why Trudeau would call these two by-elections specifically to both take place on September 16th and not call Langley-Cloverdale. In my opinion, it comes down to resources. The NDP is now forced to split the resources between LaSalle and Elmwood. Langley-Cloverdale is almost a foregone conclusion as to who the winner will be, which will be the Conservative Party. Calling this by-election with the other two doesn't make much sense from a Liberal point of view, apart from making the CPC split resources between Langley-Cloverdale and Elmwood Transcona. But again, how much resources will the CPC actually need in Langley-Cloverdale to win the seat by an acceptable margin? Ultimately, I want to know what you guys think. Who will win which elections? Is it smart for Trudeau to call these by-elections when he did? Should he be allowed to do this? Let me know in the comments down below. But apart from that, have a good rest of your day and see you.